Greetings, day 10, principle 10, as we work through David Holmgren's principles as a way of just structuring our course really and making sure that we're kind of thinking in sequence. So the previous one, principle 9, was about small and slow solutions. It really advanced the idea that if you start small, then your mistakes become learning opportunities. And another way of approaching problem solving is to set in motion many small processes and find which one works. So within that sits this idea of diversity, diversity approaches, valuing diversity in nature, valuing diversity of species, valuing the diversity of the human family. Use and value diversity. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. The picture is of a hummingbird that's perfectly adapted to work with a particular kind of flower, and typifying really some of these incredibly intimate and very specific relationships that there are in nature, and to understand that they all of these are contributing to the greater whole. So the great diversity of forms, functions, and interactions in nature and humanity are the source of evolved complexity. The role and value of diversity in nature, culture, and permaculture is itself complex, dynamic, and at times apparently contradictory. Diversity needs to be seen as a result of the balance and tension in nature between a variety and possibility on one hand, and the productivity and power on the other. It is now widely recognized that monoculture is a major cause of vulnerability to pests and diseases, and therefore of the widespread use of toxic chemicals and energy to control these. Polyculture is one of the most important and widely recognized applications of the use of diversity to reduce vulnerability to pests, adverse seasons, and market fluctuations. Polyculture also reduces reliance on market systems and bolsters households' community self reliance by providing a wider range of goods and services. So let's go right back to the beginning is don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're relying on one source of income, it only takes one error, one mistake for that income to completely fall away. Um, the more we can spread the load, the more we spread risk. Um, Traditional farmers would grow many different varieties of grain. Some do better in wet years, some do better in dry years. Some are more fungal resistant, some are more, blight resistant or whatever. The point being that by having a diversity, we can guarantee that there's going to be a stable and predictable income, even though we're now moving into a time of increasing adversity and increasing irregular, weather patterns and so forth. So we have to more and more be aware that we're going into situations not really knowing what circumstances we're going to experience. So diversity. Nature's nature banks on diversity. Um, it's what guarantees every year, if you like, there's a yield, and that within that diversity there are species that can respond to different kinds of challenges. Um, there are plants that specialize in dying back after a bushfire. There are plants that specialize in stabilizing damaged soils. Um, and we need to begin to recognize the contribution of all of these and understand their value. So, within the context of polyculture, working with plants together, um, we begin to realize that there's really no such thing as weeds. This idea of pests and weeds is a construct. It's an idea that we've created, that every element in the system is contributing in some way, and if that element gets so predominant, so out of control that it starts to feel like a weed or a pest, it's actually telling us something. It's telling us that in some way that system is out of balance, And your job as the designer, the gardener, the person working with that, is to try and restore that balance, not to identify one of the elements of the system as being bad or being an enemy and something that you need to get rid of. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Learn to value every element of the system, and your whole perspective starts to change. We have an animal trapped in the room. So I chose this image of our community garden in San Vaslin. It's not mine, a community garden I've had the pleasure of contributing to and helping lead on the design for it. It's a forest. It's an island woodland community orchard surrounded by open space, by grassland, mixed grassland, which we're trying to encourage the diversity of grasses and herbs and plants within it. The orchard itself has 100 different fruit trees, each one a different heritage variety. So we've got a diversity of form, a diversity of function, diversity of genetics. And then what that does is that creates lots of different niches for different elements to find their space within that system. Different ways for the public to interact with the garden, walking their dogs, picking the fruit, playing in it, whatever the one is, picnicking, telling stories, whatever it is, however it is you want to interact with that landscape. But the more differences, the more diversity, the more different ways in that there might be, and the more possibilities for those interactions. And at the same time, if that's true for people and relationships, that's going to be true for birds and insects and the wildlife that surround it. So use and value diversity. It's such a key idea. And that, so within our sort of permaculture approaches, we're thinking about relationships, we're thinking about designing in connections, this idea of integrated systems. We're working with it slowly, so that something can actually grow and we can observe and learn from it. And as we do that, we want to keep diversifying it, keep finding another way to add another different species, another different kind of habitat, and on it goes. Okay, thanks for that. That's